Hello, my name is Monica Jones, and welcome to my creator presentation focused on the misconceptions and misunderstandings surrounding African art. Now, before diving further into the video, take a moment to answer this question based on your understanding. African women artists have a rich and diverse history that is often overlooked in African art. African art has traditionally been seen as male-dominant, with women often excluded or marginalized in the industry. This leads into the first misconception that African women are the silent victims in African art. Lisa Arison states that African art was first recognized by Europeans as art and therefore worthy of study in the early decades of this century. Until the late 60s and early 70s, however, the only true African arts from a Western perspective were mass and figurative sculpture. Those very arts were produced only by men, since women in Africa seldom if ever carved wood or work in metal. Such craft objects as ceramics, basketry, and calabash decoration, often the work of women, were deemed to be of less value and therefore ignored. She further emphasizes the division of labor among genders in Africa, where women work with natural substances for pottery and painting exterior walls, while men work with wood and metals for sculpture. Although weaving is shared among both, yet what is made depends and is different between both men and women. For instance, blacksmithing is a form of labor given to the men. In this area, certain rules are strictly followed to maintain control during the process. These rules include keeping outsiders like women from learning the secrets and knowledge behind the skill. One ideology followed behind this exclusion is that blacksmiths who act on all available forces to ensure safety in their profession taboo menstruating women for the fear they will pollute the difficult iron smelting process. African women being judged as silent victims in African art also falls into the idea that the nature of the woman's role, being the childbearer, managing the household, and being the nurturer, confine African women to domestic roles. Domestic roles channel African women into certain areas of artistic production, such as pottery, basketry, or textiles. But it's also true that women's artistic work, though confined to certain media and done within the household, can extend into the public sphere in significant ways. African women have been featured in countless forms of art around the world, although representation is an issue. In this image, what do you see? How do you feel? What issues do you find? As seen in the image before, this follows the racial and gender stereotypes attached to the black female body. Historically, African women have been portrayed in a sense as a fetish. In art, seen partially or entirely nude with exaggerated features. This has brought harmful labels portraying African women as primitive, exotic, and seductive. This depiction is rooted in colonialism, more specifically, the history of the archetype Jezebel and the dark history of rape and sexual abuse endured by black women during slavery. Yet in traditional African art, women were depicted in roles of a mother and the caregiver. These images are shifting, all thanks to the efforts of many African artists like Wagashi Mutu. In her artist statement, Mutu says, "The history of representing women in Western art as attractive is an issue in my case because black women in the arts are still incredibly exotic. There's not that many of us, and there are often times when I walk into a museum to install an exhibition, and it takes a while for people to register that I might be the artist. We're not used to seeing women of color, especially black women, in powerful positions in the art world." Wagashi Mutu is a contemporary Kenyan artist that dabbles in a number of mediums from collages to sculptures. Her work explores gender, race, stereotypes, politics, colonialism, and global consumption. Although Mutu is best known for her disabled collages, as she used many times to describe her work, depicting female figures with a number of disfigured parts of humans, animals, plants, and machines. Sources for her collages include fragments of popular magazines spanning from medical to porn, using the cutouts to juxtapose and repurpose these images to subvert the primitive stereotype on Black women into empowering narratives. Writing Death to Sleep is a part of Mutu's first U.S. solo exhibition called A Fantastic Journey, featured at the Brooklyn's Museum. Created in 2002, this piece is centered on a pale-skinned woman in tight leopard prints with full red lips and a shaved head, looking towards the audience, suggesting a manner of self-confidence. The woman is crouched, steadily holding herself on a blue ground, surrounded by mushrooms and a few mythical creatures. Sitting among the mushrooms rests an eagle head with a pair of talons replacing its body. The piece is focused on the connection to land by immigrants and displacement, although it further extends into many other issues such as those definitive, illogical, and irrational descriptions that have been used to oppress people for so long. In this quote, Mutu is referring to the speculation behind the figure's race, pointing at the fact if she's Black enough and what defines Blackness. Ectopic Pregnancy is a collage piece created using glitter, ink, and collage on digital print. A part of the series on the histology of different classes of uterine tumors created in 2004 displays a number of medical illustrations on which discrete body parts all connect to detail an ectopic pregnancy. All the cutouts are formed almost making a face. For instance, the black glitter forms the hair, leading to the medical illustrations, bloody mouth, body parts, and blue eyes to make up the face, not to mention the drawn out neck and shoulders supporting the face. Many creators claim the work definitively expresses the idea of Western objectification of women, and in particular African women. Moreover, art critic Alexandra argues that ectopic pregnancy evokes the splicing of the native woman from the original medical text. However, the race of the woman is not visible, as seen in the piece before pondering on Blackness. Sarah Sabernak finds the collage coalesces with an ugly learning of medical history industry's promiscuous reliance on the 19th century slave plantation as a zone of racialized, sexualized, epistemological harvesting. Lastly, Praying Mantra is a large-scale mixed media collage on Mylar created in 2006, centers on a female hybrid figure surrounded by abstract forms and trees. Her form holds no identity of race based on the galactic scheme adorning her body. The figure is posed suggestively but is comfortably situated against a geometric airy form, possibly a blanket. She stares towards the viewer, right hand behind her head resting near the crown on her head, while her left hand holds a serpent resting against the blanket. Altogether, this work challenges and centers on the racist female body stereotype based on the exotic nature the figure carries and surrounds. Though in a way it empowers the spirit of the praying mantis based on the figure camouflaging with the environment behind her, which is seen as a natural hunting tactic in praying mantis. Showing evidence towards the primitive nature Mutu creates towards the issue of female subjectivity. Side note, as I mentioned before, the piece is created using Mylar. Mylar is a polyester film commonly used in photography and packaging as a conservation tactic, acting as a protective cover for artworks on paper to prevent damage from moisture, light, and heat. Wayesha Mutu, as we have observed, actively confronts the harmful stereotypes of the silent victim and racial gender biases. She doesn't simply dismiss these stereotypes. Instead, she bravely takes the elements that have been perpetuated throughout history and reinvents them in her own unique style. This approach encourages viewers to not just passively consume her art, but to engage with the uncomfortable, grim, or obscure history that it reflects. By doing this, she invites her audience to confront and question these stereotypes.